What's up, guys? It's Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be talking about the 3 best press releases, in my opinion, that you guys can use to create some separation. You guys can use this to structure your own plan off the line of scrimmage. So these are all the things you need to do on the goal line, in the middle of the field, and this, again, specific techniques from a DB. Today we're going to be talking about when to use it, the technique behind it, and all the above. So I hope this gives you some value. I hope you can learn a couple things about press releases and how you guys can create the most separation possible. But also, fellas, if you guys want over an hour and a half's worth of specific wide receiver training content where we give you a full 48-minute long video on how to improve your route running in 10 days, and then we give you a full 49-minute long video on 20 different press releases, when to use each press release, and then drills to work on each one with sets and reps. Check out that very first link in the description, fellas, for our Route Running Bible. It's a great product. Buy one, get one free value. So I hope you guys could check that out. Very first link in the description, fellas. Hope you could check it out. Like I said, let's get started. So first release we're going to be talking about is the wide step release. This is my favorite release. I work this with all the receivers that I train because I think this is something that you can build on, and this is something that can get you a lot of separation. So let's watch at full speed. So Diggs hits him with this wide step, gets that DB to jump, and then we're breaking it back to the inside on this slant out, and Diggs just does what he does. But let's focus off the line, right? Because off the line is what starts this. Because especially when I got a DB who's head up, right? We're trying to threaten him to the outside. This is something that I can do when I want to take an inside release, right? So the thing about this wide step is it's exactly how it sounds. You want to step with this outside leg, so your back leg, wide outside the DB's frame. So I've talked about this before, is that you want to treat it like you're driving, right? So you're on the freeway, you got the middle lane, you got the left lane, you got the right lane. You want to think of it like the DB's in the middle lane. You want to threaten him to the left lane to get to the right lane. You know what I'm saying? So like that's pretty much what it is. You want to threaten him to the left to get back over towards the middle. So we actually have to step outside of his frame. So you see what Diggs does on this wide step. You see how he takes this front foot. Somebody asked me the other day to make a video about false steps, and we're going to address it right now. That front foot, this is not a false step. This is a part of the release. It's more of like a step for balance. It's more of a step for power because we're trying to push off of this leg to throw this one out wide, right? So you see, you just pick it up and put it down. It's not a full step, but you see how he picks it up, and he's pushing. He's creating energy off that first step, because if you just try to step wide with the back leg, if you just line up right here and just step, it's not going to be explosive. You're going to be flat. You're not going to get any drive, and this DB ain't going to move because it's a slow movement. Your movement has to be sudden, and there has to be some explosion to it, and so all that ties into that first step. So when he takes that first step, he's pushing off of that step to actually step outside the DB's frame. Now, again, whenever I say that, somebody always has a nerve to say, oh, well, you step wide outside the guy's frame, you're reaching, you're going to be slow, you're not going to have any burst. And yeah, that is 100% true if you don't bring your upper half. If you bring your upper half with the cut, if you actually step wide and you throw your hip into it, as I like to say, like you want your hip going almost towards that sideline, and you're throwing like a crossover in basketball and you don't open up your front toe, you're going to have plenty of explosion because it's actually underneath your frame. But how we throw my upper half starts with that first step. So that is by no means a false step. That would be a false step if he was 7 yards off in zone coverage and I had to go run a curl. And I take that first step to get off the line. That's a false step because that's going to cut into the depth of the route. That's going to cut into the steps that you're taking on the route. But on a release, that first step right there, all that is for explosion, and that builds into the wide step. I consider that a part of the wide step. So you see when he throws to the outside, you step outside the DB's frame, we get him to jump. We're trying to sell like I'm just taking a quick little speed release, inside jab, and I'm going to the outside. And we got to make sure that I say that. Make sure that I say I'm going outside with my upper half, because that's what's going to make that DB to jump, and then I can just do pretty much whatever I want with him. When he's in press coverage and doesn't have hands on me, I should be able to do whatever I want. That's a gift as a receiver. Let's watch this thing again, full speed one more time. So the number one best release in my eyes is that wide step when you want to take an inside release. So he takes that little false step, throws to the outside, and then it's just we got to do what we do. We just be a salesman with the route, and that'll create a lot of separation for us. So now, this release, I'm going to consider this more of a diamond release, but this is my favorite release when you got to run a slant route, right? Because I think that there's nothing that can beat this if you do it correctly. And we're going to be talking about how you can do it correctly, especially when you got a DB who's inside shade. And on the goal line especially, this is great because Parker, I don't think this is actually Devontae Parker, excuse me, but this receiver does such a great job. I'm losing his name here, but if you guys can help me out, just leave that in the comments. But this works so great because of his eyes, right? Especially on the goal line, when you shoot your eyes back looking for that ball, that really makes that DB commit to the fade, and that's pretty much what the diamond release is all about. So let's watch it full speed. So you see I take 1, 2, 3, bam. We get that DB to turn his hips. Everything about that looked like he was just going to win this race to the back pylon. And that's what we want to make it look like. But even if I'm in the open field and I got to do this, this is a great release to use because I want to make him think that I'm just running by him. And it's built when you're backside on the play. Like, let's say we line up here. So let's say you're here, and let's say maybe you're lined up. Let's say it's like bunch right? And you're kicked out to the left, and you got this DB who's inside shape. One-on-one, he's on an island, man coverage. Maybe I just do like a little bit of a lazier route where I run up to the back corner. My job's just to run this guy out of the play. I'm not getting the ball anyways because maybe it's like a sprint right, or maybe we're just working like a quick concept to the right, but I'm looking back for that ball right away. I'm putting my hand up. I'm acting like I'm getting the ball. So the next time I got to run a slant because I know I'm coming back to it, I could get this DB to jump, right? Or I'm in the middle of the field, I put my head down and I freaking go to the outside to really get this guy to jump. The goal is to commit his hips, and there comes a point in every single rep where the DB has to turn his hips, right? He cannot shuffle for forever. He cannot shuffle with us 10 yards downfield. But we got to make him think that we're just going fade every single time. So it's 3 hard steps, right? So again, he's going 1, then he goes here, second step, 1, 2, 3, and he breaks this thing off. His steps got a little choppy, but I think especially on the goal line, it helps when you could sell this thing with your eyes, because normally you wouldn't want to sell this kind of release in the middle of the field with your eyes looking up, because that's not a fade. You don't run a fade like that. On the goal line, you might be looking a little bit quicker because that ball is going to be up quicker. But in the middle of the field, to make it look like a fade, you want to put your head down and you really want to go. But it's the same concepts. It's 3 hard steps, and the goal is to get this DB to turn his hips and actually run and make him think vertical. Now, how we make him think vertical is 1, I got to have speed. 2, I got to commit my shoulders and my hips. If you guys start to turn your shoulders and your hips too early to the inside and you have a weak break, that gives that DB all the time in the world to react. So you got to make sure that you commit your hips so you can pop it off. And then this DB, if he tries to open up like this with this inside hip, like his left hip right here, that's slow, and we should win every single time, right? He's having to grab us to even make a play on this thing. But sometimes what a DB will do is you'll get him so bad that he'll speed turn. So what's really important, especially off of any release off the line of scrimmage, that when you get to right here, we got to accelerate. We got to race to the ball right here. I make that break. I can't just drop my hands and have my hands down by my side. I got to accelerate out of there and win that race back to the ball. So the second best release I feel, especially when you're running a slant route, is a diamond release. And it's always great to throw those eyes, especially when you're on the goal line. But that's how you guys can set up the diamond release and when to use it. Inside shade DB, and I got to run a slant. Let's watch it full speed one more time. So great job pushing up, selling with those eyes, and then making sure we accelerate out of this route. All right, so now we're going to be talking about a split release. So this is another release that I love to teach. All my receivers that I've worked with, I've worked this with them before, but the split release is just such a great release because you can really use it on anything. And you can almost use it as like a reactionary release where you're trying to react off of the DB. So let's watch it full speed. So he goes with a split, then he bursts up and runs a slant. I know we're doing a lot of slants today, but this could be for anything, right? So I could take an inside or an outside release on a split release. Now, this is a great release to use if you're maybe like a slot receiver or maybe you're an outside guy and it's a real game scenario. I'm not talking about that crap one-on-ones or 7-on-7 where the guys just jam you and they know the snap count. I'm talking about real game scenario where the DB has to react off of you. When you give him this split, you're in a balanced position. So you see when Juwan Johnson here gives this split release, he's in a balanced position. It's almost like he's on a surfboard or a skateboard, right? His feet are just outside of his shoulders, but he's got to bend to his knees and he's in a good pad level position. So if this DB tries to jump me and tries to choke me, I could go either way. I could go to the outside, I go to the inside because I'm in a balanced position and both of my feet are in the ground. That's where we want to get to. And we have an explosive pad level position. Where a lot of guys screw up on the split release is they'll do this split and they'll split here, but their chest is directly up in the air. And then they just get jammed. They're going to get knocked right off this thing and they're going to be pushed back 2 to 3 yards, even if the DB stays disciplined, right? So we got to make sure that I'm in a good pad level position and it's like a sudden hop. You're literally just coming to balance. You're bringing your back foot even with your front foot. I'm lined up here. I bring my back foot even with my front foot. Now I'm in a position where I could react. This DB, for example, stays to the out. He stays to the outside shade here, so I could just take the inside release, especially when I got to run a slant, burst up 3 steps and go. But like, let's say this DB took away the inside. I split right here and he went hard to the inside. I wouldn't force it and just get completely rerouted. I could split, and if this is my plan, sometimes when you do a split release, you already kind of know what release you're going to be taking, but you do a split release right here, you could just push off of this leg and go 3 steps to the outside on a dime and get him to jump, and then I slip back underneath, right? It's all based off of reacting. A slant isn't necessarily the best one to do that off of, but if you got to run a post downfield and you do a split release and that DB jumps hard to the inside, just take the outside release and go, right? That's the beautiful thing about a split release. You come to balance, you go outside, you go inside because you're in that balance and explosive position, and you got to make sure that you're pushing off that inside arch of your foot to be able to get as much explosion as possible. You want to be patient with this release release, but also at the same time, you want to be sudden. Let's watch the thing again, full speed one more time. Great example of how to work a split release. That's perfect technique on that split, and then bursting up into this route and creating a ton of separation. All right, guys, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, please feel free to leave those in the comments below. Always appreciate the feedback. Always appreciate the new ideas. And also, fellas, our route running Bible, over an hour and a half's worth of video content on how to improve your route running in 10 days, 20 different press releases, when to use it, and drills to work on each one. Hope you guys could check that out for a buy one, get one free price. Very first link in the description. I'll see you guys next time.